Looking for me by any chance?
I've always found this a lovely little town. Not somewhere I came to that regularly, but when I did, I always enjoyed exploring around. So I'm going to have another explore today. This is Usk. The small picturesque town of Usk is situated about 10 miles northeast of Newport. It lies on the River Usk, spanned by an arched stone bridge at the western entrance to the town. The streets of Usk are steeped in history, with many charming old buildings, a wonderful Norman castle, a rural life museum, intact Victorian courtroom at the Usk Sessions House, beautiful churches, and a town trail, which includes 28 sites of historic interest, each with a blue plaque. Usk Rural Life Museum portrays rural life in Monmouthshire, covering a period of around 100 years, from 1850 to 1950, and houses a unique collection of over 5,000 artefacts, from the smallest hand tools and household items through to large agricultural machinery and vintage tractors. Usk has a good range of small independent shops, tea rooms and pubs, and there is plenty of accommodation in or near the town for those wishing to linger in this delightful place. Well known for its floral displays and highly deserving of the title Town of Flowers, Usk is a regular winner of Wales in Bloom and hosts a colourful open gardens weekend in June, with over 20 local gardens open to the public. The annual Usk Agricultural Show is held every September on the outskirts of the town. Usk is very popular with walkers and cyclists, and in 2017 a brand new children's play area was opened, which is proving to be popular with young families. I could see the ruins of the medieval Usk Castle overlooking the town, which fell into disuse 500 years ago. When a young boy saw its natural and peaceful setting, the ancient walls covered with creeper, and the old stone towers inviting the visitor to explore, he cried out, "It's like the secret castle that no one's ever found." The Priory Church of St Mary is the parish church of Usk. Its origin was as the Church of Usk Priory, a Benedictine nunnery founded by Richard de Clare, 2nd Earl of Pembroke in the 12th century. After the dissolution of the monasteries, the church became the parish church of the town. Extended and restored in the middle of the 19th century, it was again restored in 1899 to 1900. The church was designated a Grade 1 listed building in January 1974. This is Usk Prison, once the county jail for Monmouthshire. In 1990, it became an Adults Category C establishment for vulnerable prisoners and continues in that role today. Well, that was a brief but very enjoyable look around Usk again. When I used to come to Usk years ago, it was normally before or after I visited another spot that was lovely nearby, and that's where I'm heading next. From Usk, I travelled about 5.5 miles southwards to Wentwood. Well, it has been a very, very long time since I was last here in Wentwood. I just turned 52 4 days ago. The last time I was here, I was 27. 25 years. I can't believe it. It really just seems like a whole lifetime away. Quarter of a century. Where does the time go, eh? Well, it's lovely to be back in Wentwood, so I'm going to do a little walk around Wentwood Forest. Five paths. Now that brings back some memories. I decided to do a couple of short walks in Wentwood, and the first would start here at Cadara Beeches, so I began to follow the track in the direction of the five paths. Wentwood is a forested area of hills rising to 1,014 feet. It is located to the northeast of and partly within the boundaries of the city of Newport. It is the largest ancient woodland in Wales and the 9th largest in the UK. The current wooded area is a remnant of a much larger ancient forest, which once extended between the rivers Usk and Wye. I soon arrived at the five paths. I sat down here for a while to take a moment to look back. When I was here 25 years ago, I was living in Bristol at the time, and I was very surprised to see one of my Bristol friends walking around here. His name was Michael, and he had been encouraged by a couple of other friends to come out for a walk, and it was in this neck of the woods where he came. I actually saw him here around the five paths, so for a bit of fun, I decided to follow him for a while, hopefully without him knowing. From the five paths, I headed back towards Cadara Beeches to finish the first of my short walks today. As I walked along, I had some breathtaking views towards the Brecon beacons in the distance. Shortly after I'd seen Michael here in Wentwood, I wrote to him whilst I was staying at my grandparents' house in Chepstow. I told him that I'd seen him here and suggested meeting up for a walk sometime. However, I didn't actually reveal who I was straight away, so I decided to make up a name for myself as I wanted to remain mysterious. I signed my letter to him as the Solitary Rambler. That seemed really appropriate, and from that day on, that title has stayed with me ever since. Well, now I'm slowly going to make my way up to Grey Hill. This was my second short walk today, so I began to follow the bridleway leading eastwards from Foresters Oaks. In 2006, the Woodland Trust purchased nearly 900 acres of Wentwood. However, the section of Wentwood owned by the Trust is only a small part of the forest, which overall covers more than 2,500 acres. In medieval times, the woods belonged to the Lordship of Chepstow and provided hunting preserves, and timber, fuel and pasture lands for the tenants of nearby manors. The Royal Forest of Wentwood had its own forest laws, and courts were held twice yearly at Foresters Oaks. These courts tried luckless locals charged with a range of crimes within the forest boundaries, from sheep stealing to poaching deer. These crimes were taken so seriously that offenders were hanged, the last as recently as 1829. I continued along the path which skirted the lower slopes of Grey Hill. It was incredible to think that it was 25 years since my last visit to Wentwood, but my appreciation of the area had not diminished. My path finally levelled out as I came out onto the common near the top of Grey Hill. From here I could see across to the Severn estuary. I carried on following the path across the common. Soon I was at the summit, so I stopped to enjoy the clear and spectacular views all around. I had forgotten how amazing the view is from Grey Hill. That's such a brilliant view. You can just see the second Severn crossing there. Came across that this morning on my way here, but more importantly, and that's the original Severn Bridge, the first Severn Road Bridge. Even after all these years, I still think it's a wonderful structure. I'm very proud of the Severn Bridge because my mum was the first woman to walk onto the Severn Bridge. This is because she worked for Cleveland Bridges, the firm who built the Y Bridge section of the whole bridge. And one day she was given a tour of the Severn Bridge before it opened. So even though the Queen officially opened the Severn Bridge in 1966, my mum was the first woman to step onto that bridge. I'm very proud of that. I used to wear a fedora all the time. I always thought it looked really nice. especially when I wore it with a suit for work. I do recall one woman in work saying that she thought it looked a bit posy. Well, perhaps she was right, but it wasn't my intention to be posy. I just thought they looked really smart. And they were very fashionable in the olden days. When you look at films, for example, from the 1950s and before, everybody in those films wore a hat of some kind. So it's just by the 80s and 90s those kind of hats went out of fashion. I do actually remember wearing my fedora on the odd occasion when I went out for a walk, like when I came here 25 years ago. And maybe in hindsight it probably wasn't the best thing to be wearing on a walk, but I still like wearing it when I wore a suit for work. And I do think it's a shame that fedoras and all those kind of hats really went out of fashion. Well, coming back on top of Grey Hill has been wonderful. The views are amazing, and I'd actually forgotten how lovely it was up here. Well, now I'm going to climb back down to Foresters Oaks. Well, that wasn't quite what I was expecting, but it's good to see this again. Wentwood Reservoir was completed by Newport Corporation between 1896 and 1903, opening in 1904, and is a centre for trout fishing. However, as I could see for myself today, the water from the reservoir had been completely drained. I later discovered this had been carried out last year in preparation for planned maintenance work involving refurbishment of the tower and installation of new valves, which will help manage and control the flow of water from the reservoir. Well, even though there's no water in the reservoir today, I've seen this view time and time again, and each time is as good as the first. Well, that's my day here in Wentwood at an end, and it's been lovely returning here after 25 years. I've really enjoyed reminiscing about the last time I was here. Well, I need to make my way home now, but just before I do go, there's one more thing I need to do. Well, I don't have the leather jacket anymore, sadly, and even if I did, I doubt that it would fit me now. However, I do have this. Okay, I concede. I agree that fedoras are probably not the most appropriate thing to be wearing whilst going out for a walk. But I do think these hats are really nice, and I hope one day they come back into fashion. There's some people wandering about over there, looking a bit lost. I wonder if they're looking for me by any chance.